Hey, what's up, guys? So, since it's January and the Royal Rumble is this Sunday, which I sure as hell am not gonna watch, I thought to myself, why not review a classic Royal Rumble pay per view? So, I've already done 2001's last year. So, this year we're gonna look back at the one that came the year before that, and that is the 2000 Royal Rumble pay per view. Yes, the first WWF pay per view of the new millennium. Back when we were all relieved that none of our computers crashed. And believe it or not, this was actually the first WWF pay per view I actually attended live, since I used to live in New York. And one that I'm glad I no longer live in because New York City is a piece of shit. No offense to anybody that lives in New York, but I just never liked living there. Ugh. But we're not here to talk about that. But yeah, this pay per view was just the best from top to bottom. You know, I actually still own this pay per view on DVD, but no longer have the case for it because I lost it. Now, this is one Attitude Era pay per view I've gone back to watch from time and time again. And I've said this before and I'll say it again 2000 was a great year for the WWF. From the pay per views, from the storylines, and the creations of a lot of new stars, this was a great year. And this pay per view would be a great kickoff on what would be a great year. So we kick off this pay per view with the rookie Kurt Angle facing off against Taz. So Kurt Angle gets on the mic and cuts his usual heel promos he cuts during this time. And it's actually funny going back and just listening to just how different Kurt Angle sounds compared to his later years. Again, this was Kurt Angle in his earlier years. Then Taz makes his debut entrance and the crowd goes fucking nuts when he makes his debut. This was actually at a time when Taz left ECW to join the WWF. Taz actually said in an interview that he left ECW because he was on the top of his game and had lost a lot of his passion. So my guess was that he felt there was nothing left for him to do in ECW. But I think a part of that was due to money reasons, especially at a time when wrestlers were not getting paid on time. Paul Heyman. Now, I've always thought this was one of the greatest debuts in wrestling history. From his badass theme song, the huge pop he got, his look and swagger. This match was a damn good opener, for a match of two wrestlers who were known to doing a lot of suplexes. Especially when Taz does this German suplex and Kurt Angle just lands on his belly, which I thought was one of the best German suplexes I've seen. And the ending when Kurt Angle was choked out was a pretty good ending, except for the fact that I heard that Kurt Angle was choked out for real. But it's a real shame that after that awesome debut, the rest of Taz's career would be a huge disappointment, as he just became another guy on the roster. And it's probably due to his height, but Taz was a pretty huge star in ECW, and he should have been treated a hell of a lot better. Not necessarily saying he should have been feuding up against top guys like The Rock and Austin, but he deserved a lot better. But then again, his neck was getting worse by the time he got to the WWF. So I understand why he would later retire and just stick to doing commentary with Michael Cole. Taz wins, but later the decision is reversed. And yeah, great opener. So the next match we get are the Hardys versus the Dudley Boys in the first ever tables elimination match. And this match was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, yeah, it was basically a spot fest, but a spot fest done right. And that's pretty much what these two teams were known for doing. You can definitely tell that the Hardys and the Dudleys were starting to come on their own as tag team stars. And I was such a huge fan of these two teams at this point in time. Like I said, this match was a lot of fun to watch. The crowd were super into it. Jeff Hardy does like this super swanton bomb off the balcony onto Bubba Ray through a table. The Hardy Boys win, and yeah, this match was awesome. Next, we get is a filler segment to cool you off after all that extreme shit you saw. And that is a swimsuit competition to crown Miss Rumble with Ivory, Luna Vachon, Barbara Bush, the Cat, Terry, and Jacqueline. Mae Young comes out, shows her tits on TV, and wins the competition. Since I own the DVD version, they actually show a little bit of her tits on camera. And yeah, I had to wash my eyeballs after seeing that because I did not want to see old lady tits on TV. But I will say it was a pretty entertaining filler to say the least, aside from the Mae Young stuff. You know, something like this wouldn't get away in today's feminist PC world we live in today. But as someone who grew up during this period in the WWF, like I said, it was a pretty entertaining for what it was, aside from the Mae Young stuff. I was actually watching this with my girlfriend, and she actually found this to be pretty entertaining. So there you have it. Next we get is a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. And we have Chris Jericho versus China versus Hardcore Holly. And it's actually funny going back and watching this because Chris Jericho and China were actually co-holders of the Intercontinental Championship heading into this match. Because on SmackDown in 1999, Chris Jericho and China pinned each other, thus led to them being co-holders of the Intercontinental Championship, which I've always thought was a stupid idea. I mean, seriously, like, why couldn't they just vacate the title instead of just making them both champions? That was just fucking stupid. Thus, it led to them shoehorning Hardcore Holly into this match for some reason. Just pointless. But yeah, Chris Jericho wins, and this time the title is only for him, thankfully. And we move on to a shitty match. We have the New Age Outlaws defending their tag team titles against the Acolytes. And this match was a disappointment after all that buildup. The New Age Outlaws retain after a bit of distraction from X-Pac. Lame. But thankfully, we move on to what is the best match on this show, and that is Cactus Jack versus Triple H for the WWF Championship. And the build-up behind this match was great. You know, you have a Triple H and Stephanie who are great heels, trying to make Mick Foley's life a living hell. But then Mick Foley doesn't let that get to him and becomes his other alter ego in Cactus Jack. And thus it led to this match. And like I said, Triple H and Stephanie were great heels around this time. Say what you want to say about them, even though I don't agree with any of the arguments, but you can't deny they knew how to make you hate them. You know, especially Triple H, who became the biggest heel during this time. The match itself was great. You had these two guys hitting each other with chairs, barbed wire baseball bats, going through announcers' tables, brawling outside the ring, going through thumbtacks. This was great. And it really makes me wish we could get this much amount of violence, brutality, and storytelling in WWE nowadays, which we may never get ever again, which sucks, and is one of the reasons why I no longer watch. And if we do get something like this nowadays, it won't be to this level. And I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the video. I just loved the way the arena setup looked. You know, I just loved the New York themed stage. To me, it kind of makes you feel like you're at an ECW event, which is pretty cool. Definitely match of the night for sure. And this match is also known for helping elevate Triple H to that next level. And it definitely did. Because before this, even though Triple H was a 3-time WWF champion, it just felt like he was missing something. And that was a clean victory at a Big Four pay-per-view. And I can definitely say it elevated him to that next level. Because after this, Triple H became a true main event star and became the biggest heel during this year. You know, like, Triple H was just red hot as a heel during this time. And he even became a superstar of 2000. Love him or hate him, he proved that he was main event material. I mean, come on, even the biggest Triple H haters have to admit this. Even though they won't, they probably know deep down inside that he was deserving of it. But anyways, Triple H pedigrees Cactus Jack through the thumbtacks and retains his title. Then Cactus Jack attacks Triple H after the match, which kinda tells you that the feud wasn't over. And lastly, we get to the actual Rumble match itself. And this was a pretty good Rumble. I'm sure if any of you grew up during the Attitude Era, you'll see a lot of familiar faces in this match. One funny part I found about this match was Rikishi dominating for a little bit when he's just eliminating some guys left and right. One guest appearance you get in this match is Bob Backlund, who I think had not been seen in the WWF for a few years. Another funny part I found about this match was Kai and Tai trying to force their way into the Rumble and would get their asses kicked and tossed over the top rope numerous times. There was even this one funny part of the match where Taka Michinoku landed on his face when he was tossed out, and I think he was actually hurt for real. And they would keep replaying that moment at certain parts of the match, which I thought was pretty funny. Then there's Gangrel, who makes his final appearance in this Rumble. But yeah, this was a pretty good Rumble. I will say it was starting to drag a little for me towards the end of the match because there was a little too much jabronis in this match because we were all just waiting for The Rock to come out. And it was pretty predictable that The Rock was going to win. So he eliminates the Big Show last. The Rock wins. But then the Big Show, like the sore loser he is, tosses The Rock over the top rope even though he lost. And this would continue their feud heading into No Way Out. But yeah, like all in all, this was a pretty good Rumble. And like I said, I've rewatched this show countless times. And it's still a pretty entertaining show to watch despite one bad match. So I'd highly suggest you watch this show if you haven't seen it before. And for those of you who have seen it, give me your thoughts down below. But anyways, later bitches, and I'll see you next time or on the next video, whatever. Yeah, later.